this is John Clemmy with the New Bike Switzerland podcast. We are on the eastern shore of Lake Zurich today. It's winter time, and I'm wearing the new Bike Switzerland Tradition winter jersey made out of the industry's Roubaix material, which means the inside is a nice soft fleece. I'm just wearing a t-shirt, got my jacket on, no need for a blanket or any of this stuff. I'm feeling good. Bless you. Nice to have a hat on though. But I'm here to talk about Bike Switzerland products in general. We're going to have a podcast now about the Bike Switzerland products, the manufacturing process in Italy. So sit back and watch this.
The first job is to find a good design. So we have 3 graphic artists working for us, and they submit various designs. We put these online, ask people to comment, and finally come up with something we all like. So once we find the perfect design, it's time to send everything to Italy. This time we want to show you the manufacturing process from start to finish. So we take the train from Zurich to Milan, and then we change trains again, going on a regional train to a small city called Castelfranco. This is our manufacturer, GSG, Global Sports Gear. It's a small company, just 30 minutes from Venice. The company was started in 1984 by Simone Fraccaro. Simone was a professional racer, and he did well. He won a stage of the Tour de France and a stage of the Giro. Then in 1984, with a few investors, he retired and started GSG. Now, the company is small, only 40 or so employees, but they're using the latest techniques, and they've got their own collection. They've got a team of young designers, and every year they put out a large summer collection and a large winter collection of their own clothing. And that's what initially attracted me to GSG. Their designs, they're amazing. This is Simone's son, Ronnie. Simone is slowly going into retirement, and so Ronnie is the one sitting at the big desk now. And he's never biked professionally, but he did study philosophy and literature in Venice, and so he's a great dinner companion. Okay, but let's get back now to making the jerseys. This is Ronnie. Ronnie's father founded GSG, and he's going to take care of all of our production. The first thing we need to do is make sure that our conception is correctly reproduced in this manufacturer's template. And we do that to make all the individual pieces of the product, and that way we can make sure that colors, layout, and sizes are all correct. The printing process we use is called sublimation, and this is a sublimation printer. And it's printing the exact shape and color of the individual pieces on special sublimation paper. And this sublimation process is important, and we'll talk about that a little later in the podcast. The fabric that we're using is then spread out on this long table, and the design that was just printed is then laid over the fabric, and the individual pieces of the jersey are machine cut. By the way, all the fabric used here at GSG is Italian, and one of the more technical fabrics is actually produced here in Switzerland. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. Here is the sublimation room, and the pieces of fabric are all laid out on a flat surface, and then they're covered with this sublimation paper that you just saw printed. Now the paper contains ink, and the ink goes into the fabric when heat is applied. And there's lots of advantages to this. First of all, the color goes into the fibers of the fabric and not just on top. And so the colors never run or fade, and you have continuous tones of color. So the printing comes out like a picture. The jersey isn't just made up of these sections of color. And finally, we can print over the entire jersey. We've got complete control, and that's not like screen printing where you're limited to printing in very specific areas. Finally, all the pieces go upstairs to the sewing laboratory, and here we have 15 or 20 seamstresses working depending upon what time of year, and ultimately this is why we cannot produce jerseys or cycling clothing in Switzerland. You simply cannot find a group of 20 professional seamstresses in Switzerland. In fact, you're going to have a hard time finding a sewing lab of this size anywhere in Western Europe outside of Italy. Now, all of these ladies have their own area of expertise. One woman will be using a machine to attach a zipper. Another will be using a machine for stitching the cuffs and the waistband. And a third person might simply be using a more standard machine to stitch all the other pieces together. So The only thing that is automated in this whole process is the fabric cutting, and that's why a lot of companies decide to take their work abroad. It's just labor intensive and therefore cheaper. So producing in Italy is more expensive, but in return we keep the tradition of fashion, the tradition of cycling, and you'll see that in the details, which we'll show in a podcast coming up a little later in the year. So yeah, producing clothing of this kind in Italy is more expensive, but it's like buying bread from the bakery or paying a bit more at a farmer's market. Those places give you something of quality, and they also give you a story, and we're trying to do the same. We're giving you our story. You're learning about our tours, our clothes, what we value, and you know what? You're getting a product of quality as well, an Italian garment made by GSG, a company owned and operated by cyclists in a country with a long tradition of cycling.